Hey friends, before we get into talking or connecting, just want to welcome everyone. Looks like 496 of you joined for today. This is a one-off, so let's really carpe diem it, take advantage of it. Let's try to get rid of any distractions. Don't get rid of your children or your dog, but I mean, get your phone away from you if you can. Turn notifications off. Let's give yourself the gift of being here. Happy cheerful December 40th, everyone. I appreciate all of your comments. I read through all of them. Let's take a great posture. Wangle your shoulders around a little. Take your best posture of the week. We'll meditate for a second. If you don't know how to meditate, you're probably more advanced than the rest of us. Just connect with your breath, eyes open. We're not trying to block out anything, no matter how horrific or scary or upsetting or heartbreaking the world is. Just find your breath, your normal old breath. We're not doing anything profound. We're just brushing our teeth. Trungpa Rinpoche talked about how meditation should be as ordinary and every day as brushing your teeth. Not a big deal, NBD. There's 500 people now exactly from all over the world. We're connecting. We can't connect in person, but our hearts are right here in this present moment, which is not a location particularly. Just find your breath. It's been a long week. This week has been a long year, as some people have noted. Okay, let's begin with a bow to one another. Everyone, take your best posture and with respect and friendliness for one another as equals, give it away. Okay, please type the word bow with parentheses if you feel like it. It's just a Buddhist tradition of respect, of greeting, of beginning something properly. Please don't leave early. We're going to end precisely in 53 minutes. And when we end, we'll end with a bow. If you have to leave, just leave quietly. No need to say you have to go. It kind of breaks up the meeting. I want to begin with a couple super basics. We're in a world full of charlatans and salespeople and would-be, wannabe cult leaders. I'm an idiot. Everyone who knows me knows I'm an idiot. Being an idiot is not necessarily a bad thing. I am not here to be anyone's teacher. Even Redford, who's right here, I'm not his master or teacher. He's probably my teacher. We're not doing a little cult hour. We are just coming together. Why are you here? Maybe everyone type a couple words, especially if you're a bit quiet, wallflower shy. Just type a couple words. Why did you bother to show up today? A couple, while you do that, a couple basics. There's ask a question here. Is my finger over it? I don't know if the layout's the same for you. Ask a question is right there. If you're inspired to continue this community for the rest of the month, our Maitri boot camp, which should really be in quotes. It's a humorous term, but yeah, we're going to get into Maitri. We're going to get crazy about Maitri. We're going to do some hardcore Maitri. We're going to step through the tires with high knees and climb up the walls and swing on the ropes and crawl under the whatever obstacles of this life together. Maitri to me is the most powerful thing I've ever got to practice or study. Maitri, for those of you who don't know, we can put a link in the sidebar for the course and you can check it out. But Maitri is loving kindness, which I think is a very sweet term. But Maitri is not about love or kindness in my mind. Maitri, like love itself, is tough stuff. It's gritty stuff. It can be fun, it can be sexy, it can be delightful, but love is really about opening up and communicating when we don't want to. It takes vulnerability, everyone's favorite word of 2019. It takes bravery. It takes guts. It's tough stuff. It's tough stuff. All right, I'm going to read a few of your comments. Why did you come here? To get centered. Community, connection. Says it all. Slow down. Exactly. I'm going to talk about that. I'll start talking about that. My daughter thought it would be something good for me. Peace. I'll talk about that. Connection. A lot of connection, insight, conscience, new consciences, new awarenesses, motivation, integration. Well said. Like-minded, positive folks. Inspiration. I'm going to miss some. It just updated. Struggling. Thank you. So I want to be super honest. If you came here because you thought you would get anything, inspiring and wise, you came to the wrong place. Who here came to the wrong place? I say that because I have spent this week feeling really sad and hopeless, and because it's not getting any better, and it's not going to get any better as long as people want to compete for internet points on Twitter. It's like a soapbox contest that goes 24 hours a day. And yesterday, I felt fully depressed. I canceled almost all my meetings. I worked all day, but I just felt so sad because this country that we all love, and love, like a relationship, has to include criticism and has to include being aware of how it can be better and working for that, like John Lewis did. He said he loved America, and he said what he loved about America wasn't a destination, it wasn't a promised land, it was constantly working. And that felt really important to do a gathering about, because the good news is someone says slow down. The good news is that if we slow down, we can feel everything's become a cliche on elephant, but we can feel our hearts. And if we can acknowledge the sadness of what is going on, then we'll be inspired to change, And it's super hip and cool among progressives right now to say, and I understand it, to say, F these people, we're not going to talk with each other. It's become cool to give up on one another. But the bad news is you can't. The bad news is even if you're right, and we should give up on some of these people, some of these racist and sexist and aggressive people, they're still here. We're all in the same boat. Anyone ever watch that Hitchcock movie where everyone's stuck in a little rowboat? That's America. That's this world. So you can give up on one another, but where does that get you? You can be better than one another. You can take pot shots at one another on Twitter. But at the end of the day, we're still in this boat together. When I was growing up, Troy, so good to have you here, man. Troy's a vegan. He's a wonderful presence on Instagram. We should all follow everyone. But what we're, I don't know. There's a lot we could go into. I don't even know where to go. If you want to ask a question below, you could ask a question. I guess what I was going to start by saying is the most beautiful gift that Buddhism, which I got to grow up with, and I totally took for granted until I was like 17 and I was miserable at college. You know, I was so excited to go to college and party and get to the big city and get away from my stupid little town. And I went to college and I was miserable. I was very lonely. I've never experienced loneliness like that. It was fun at first, but after a while, it just seemed like there was no community and, you know, it was just cynical. And I don't know. I don't even remember why it was so miserable. But maybe I was just like a kid away from my parents and I just was homesick or something. I don't know. But that was the first time I really fully turned toward Buddhism, not out of some cult thing, but because Buddhism talked about loneliness. Buddhism talked about meditation. Buddhism talked about making friends with myself. And I realized, I think, in that freshman year at college, that I wasn't really friends with myself, that I didn't have a best friend everywhere I went who was myself. How comforting is it? Remember, if you have a question, ask a question. How comforting is it? Or if you want to make a comment that you want me to respond to. How comforting is it, the notion of having your best friend wherever you go? You go to a party, you got your best friend with you. You're in an argument with your loved one, you got your best friend with you, mediating. You have, you know, your best friend can be tough on you. Best friends aren't just there to enable you. That's what Maitri is. Maitri is making friends with ourselves, parts of ourselves that we like. What do I like about myself? I like my sideburns. What do I dislike about myself? Well, you know, I have like a little eye infection and I'm getting wrinkles and my hair is thinning and, you know, I have guilt about this thing I did in the past, or I have ambition about this thing in the future, or my teeth hurt because I never could have braces, or, you know, I'm out of shape because of this damn quarantine, or, you know, I'm sick of my habitual patterns in terms of eating, or whatever it is. We all have issues with ourselves. Some of those issues are important to acknowledge and work with. We can't be narcissists, right? We have to work with ourselves and we have to be willing to improve and wake up. I don't know if I'm talking too much suddenly, but there's also, you know, from the Maitri point of view, the better Waylon or the better Iggy or the better Salima or Amy or Troy is not out here. It's not self-help, right? The better person is right here. It's a wonderful book I recommend to all of you. Just his face makes you feel better. The better person is right here. And we have to be willing to listen to ourselves. A lifetime of just being speedy and trying to entertain ourselves to death. We could subscribe to Netflix and watch crappy, I'm sorry to offend you, Hallmark movies. We'll put a link in the sidebar, Best Buddhist Books. I did a blog. It's called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Suzuki Roshi. It's very simple and universal. None of this is about being Buddhist, by the way. We'll put the link. Emily and Molly are getting it. Best Buddhist books for beginners, I think was the blog. So Troy has a beautiful question. Remember, people, put your questions and ask a question and upvote one another. I'll jump in there right now. We have just to be clear, nothing is happening this hour. Nothing, there's the link, folks. Nothing is happening this hour. We're just connecting. So it's all about you. It's all about me. It's all about this world. I can talk about what happened at the Capitol. I can talk about where I think we need to go from here. I can talk about, I have some good, intelligent notions around that because I care about the stuff and I study it, and I'm sure you do too. But that's not really the point of this. The point of this is really just to come together. So Cassie, please put that question and ask a question. I love that question. How do you actually practice Maitri practically every day? You can't talk about Maitri. You can't talk your way to Maitri. You can't, as they say in Zen Buddhism, the second you say something, it's no longer true because you're limiting what you felt. That's the difficulty of writing. And that's why poetry can be powerful sometimes. So I'm not going to get into how we practically practice Maitri because that is the course, 21 days. You can join us, super affordable, it's community, and it's going into depth. I'm not doing that as a teaser. I'm doing that because Maitri is not a candy. It's not fast food. We have to stop, even in Tibet, Trungpa Rinpoche would criticize his own people. He would say people would go from town to town to town to town, from Zoom call to Zoom call to Zoom call to Zoom call, from book to book to book to book, looking for little, bits of wisdom that they could put around, add to their necklace, add to their collection. Maitri is not a little trinket. Maitri is tough. Maitri is hard. Tough and hard means we got to slow down. We actually got to do it. I will talk, however, about Maitri because I'm not trying to tease you, but I just we have to get out of this fast food mentality. As Leslie says, COVID lockdown introduced me to loneliness. Loneliness is there every day of our lives. Death is there every day of our lives. I wrote about that in a blog on Elephant called Death Comes Without Warning. It's about the four, what is it called? Molly or Emily, help me out. Anyway, we could put the link in the side bar. But the power of death or the power of loneliness is it reminds us, carpe diem, as in one of my favorite movies, Dead Poets Society. Thank you. It reminds us of how to fully live this life every day and how to treat others. So it's called the Four Reminders. Very ironic that I can't remember. But my brain is a little blown out this week. So ask your question. How do we help others become aware of lack of self-love without being judgmental? Troy Jackson. Thank you, Troy. I mean, you know the answer. You're a kind man. All you can do is offer it. You can't force feed. You can lead the horse to water, right? You can't force feed anyone. That said, I do want to talk about that word judgmental. There's nothing wrong with judging others. There's nothing wrong with judging ourselves. We have to let go of this notion that judgment is bad. It's very popular among alternative spiritual communities to say, oh, everything's cool. Judgment is evil. Everything is cool. It's a very ironic statement that judgment is bad. Prejudgment is the problem, right? Prejudgment. Prejudgment is prejudice. Prejudgment is preconception. Prejudice. Prejudice. Judgment is what we do every day. As I like to say, I'm drinking black, organic, fair trade coffee because I hope that my coffee is not causing suffering on the other end of the world. I don't like to, consume and support other people's suffering in my coffee. Does that make me perfect? Does that make me self-righteous? No. But it's a judgment that I make, that I'm trying to, it's discernment, right? I'm trying to do something mindful. Elephant's called the mindful life. It's okay to judge ourselves. Judgment is not bad. We need to let go of that. Prejudgment is the problem. We judge that we're going to eat an organic apple versus a pile of poop. That's a judgment. We're so afraid of that word. It's important to actually judge. What happened in our nation's capital this week was the culmination of years of the incitement of division, the incitement of violence, making aggression seem like a effing awesome thing, right? I judge that event as incredibly sad. But I can't prejudge that event because the people who were involved in that event, the person who instigated it most of all, I have to look at what happened, and that's where journalism comes in. It should have caused you anxiety. Anxiety is a sane reaction to that event. Karen, it's not a neurosis or a fault of yours. Prejudging that event is saying, MAGA people are bad, F Trump, calling him an orange Cheeto, all that kind of stuff. That's just prejudgment. If you actually look at the monster that is Donald J. Trump, you see a sad, vacuous, powerfully dishonest example of humanity. And it's an example of humanity that we have had to deal with and will have to deal with on an ongoing basis. It's called narcissism. It's called having an awful upbringing without any love in it. That doesn't mean we have to feel compassion and have a little Trump doll that we cuddle at night, but it does mean that we don't other any of this. Outrage is also completely like anxiety. It's a completely sane reaction to what happened. Especially in men, but in this society, a lot of us are uncomfortable with aggression and uncomfortable with outrage and uncomfortable with anger. And we say it's not a valid emotion. Jenny, that is a judgment. And if you haven't studied, if you haven't read, if you haven't watched things, that might be a prejudgment. But if you look at things and you have an open, discerning mind, discerning all the time, then that's a great judgment. Abusers hate being called out, but I'll say another thing about abusers. Abusers are often abused. That's not an excuse. As Tess says, we can it's easy to say we can choose. Choosing is what you do out of some level of privilege. A lot of people are caught up in that mindset of fighting for their father's love or whatever it is. And yes, I don't excuse any of this. None of this is meant to excuse. If you think I'm excusing any of it, frankly, you can go to hell. I'm furious, and outrage is a healthy reaction. But then what? If it's just war on war, what? But outrage can lead us to vote. Outrage can lead us to go out with a clipboard again and again, as so many primarily black women did in Georgia. And then you see real change. What primarily black women, but many decent American citizens did in Georgia changed the fate of the entire world without deposing Mitch McConnell as majority leader, where he has dedicated himself. He calls himself the Grim Reaper, where he kills all the bills that come to his desk. But it wasn't just Stacey Abrams, and God bless her. It was hundreds and thousands of black women and other caring, kind citizens. And that outrage and that empathy led them to do the hard work, not just to tweet, not just to express themselves, but to go out and register people to vote. I have no idea what I said that led you to think that I'm interested in compromising with fascists. But self-righteousness doesn't get us anywhere. Outrage leads us to action. John Lewis was an example of that. What Georgia did will enable President Biden and others to advance a climate change agenda, to heal our voting rights. Voting rights which held up this election pretty well, but are quite fragile. I don't know how many of you know, but I think it was 2013, after 50 years after the Voting Rights Act, the Supreme Court overturned a part of a law protecting the voting rights. And, immediately many states started messing with voting rights. So without voting rights, without free elections, without fighting climate change, we don't have a planet. We don't have a democracy. So there's probably a lot of people here. You met John Lewis. Oh. Yeah, we should all just take a moment and just, if you have any connection to John Lewis or Stacey Abrams or Georgia, Ossoff, Warnock, just think about what they did. And it's ironic and it's unfortunate that what happened later in that day overshadowed Georgia, and we should all do our part to unovershadow that. Let's just think about what people did in Georgia for a moment. You with me? If you're with me, say "hi," and then I'll go back into ask you questions. Just close your eyes and just think about what so many people did. Again and again, getting out there and caring. Democracy is caring. It's a participant sport, or it's nothing. And that's how you get to fascism. That's how you get to whatever, to a broken government. Maybe you don't care about politics, but you sure as hell care about society and living a decent life. And the two are connected. So think about it as healing society, if you prefer. Just think about Georgia and all the people in it with some gratitude. Think about what will be able to happen now. It'll still be hard, it'll still be compromised, it'll still be imperfect. And like Obama says again and again in his book and in person, we have to be active, we have to be involved. But think about what's possible. That's some real good news. Megan, how can I quell the hatred and anger I feel for Trump supporters? I think for me, I'm going to just answer that personally. I think, Michelle, who's been at many of these meetings, God bless Michelle. So good to have you back. Michelle, please write on elephant. Does anyone here how to write on elephant. How do we quell our anger and hatred for Trump supporters? The same question could be asked, how can we quell our anger and hatred for, the libtards or whatever? There's a lot of anger and hatred that's going both directions. It's not the same. There aren't good people on both sides. I'm not making that equating that. There are good people on both sides, but not in the sense that Trump meant it. There are good people everywhere, but there's a lot of misdirected people who have bought into a pretty fascist, dictatorial, a man who doesn't care about truth. So the way you write on elephant is elephantjournal.com/post. Just bookmark that or open up that link. So how do we quell that anger or hatred? I think that's number one. That's a beautiful question because it acknowledges something that is no longer that cool to acknowledge. That anger and hatred is maybe something we want to quell. It's actually become quite popular within progressive circles and within Trump circles to hate the other. That's what leads to violence. That said, as other people have mentioned, including Michelle, feeling anger and hatred and outrage right now is pretty understandable. So that's a complicated thing. We have to acknowledge both. It's totally understandable and okay, and we need to feel that. And we also don't want a world full of anger and hatred and violence. Does anyone want a world full of anger, hatred, and violence? Anyone here? So how do we deal with anger, hatred, and violence in ourselves and in others? Well, like sadness, like loneliness, that comes back to Maitri. That comes back to slowing down enough to feel it. But drowning in it and acting on it is buying into it. Drowning in it and acting on it is not cool. It's not macho. Should progressives want to be macho? No. Let's leave that for Trump. Let's leave toxic masculinity for, well, hopefully for nobody. But certainly we don't need to buy into that. We don't need to get a bigger gun, a bigger nuclear bomb, a bigger red button on our desk, as Trump once said about North Korea. Well, I did drown a bit yesterday, Beth Ann. That's a beautiful question. But with the practice of meditation, with the practice of Maitri, we don't drown. Something very helpful for me in terms of drowning is to realize that drowning on some level is solidifying what isn't solid. It's solidifying self-pity in a way, self-importance. So the anger, as Michelle, outrage, and others have said, can lead us to act. It can lead us to get people to register to vote. It can lead us to what happened in Georgia. But that anger, if you solidify it, if you use it to fill a vacuum or to create your entire identity around that aggression, can lead us to what we saw in the Capitol. And for those who feel like, okay, well, there was violence in BLM protests. Number one, there wasn't really that much. People wore masks. There was a lot of love. For those who did riot or attack stuff, that was limited. And in the first protest in Minneapolis, it was documented that this guy going around breaking the windows in the very beginning was a far-right extremist. But like Biden has said, like others have said, we have to be bold enough to say aggression is not the solution for either side, right? It's not. I think there's a lot of quotes about becoming what you despise, becoming what you hate. So how do you quell the hatred and anger I feel for Trump supporters? Well, asking the question is the first step because you're looking at it, you haven't solidified it. Then it's Maitri. Then it's practice. Then it's actually doing the practice. That's all I have to say. We can philosophize, we can talk all we want. Troy, please write about being vegan. I'm vegan. This is one of the things that blows my mind. Climate change, aggression, dictatorships, all this craziness. And yet people, we have certain ways that we can reduce the aggression in our world, reduce the suffering. And Troy, you could be a needed voice of, of color around veganism. Because too often it's folks like me talking about veganism. But veganism shouldn't be something about privilege. Veganism can be affordable. Veganism can be accessible. Veganism can be delicious. Veganism can include cultural traditions. Veganism can be compassionate, empathy. It's what Jesus talked about for the most vulnerable, for the most hopeless. Yeah, Leslie, I got attacked all last night on Instagram after I posted and on Twitter. So I'm going to keep going into questions. But basically, if you actually want to work with that aggression, please join us. We're not making a profit off of Elephant Academy. We keep it affordable for a reason. We put a ton of stuff into it. My goal, and Molly and Emily can back me up here. Nothing's wrong with making profit, by the way. Business, especially if it's directed to make the world better, should make a profit, not just toxic businesses that are exploiting the planet or exploiting people. But Elephant Academy to me is meant to be a reliquary for wonderful teachers and for wonderful teachings to make this world better. Who here has done Elephant Academy? Yeah, go follow Troy, everyone. And please, if I can ask a personal favor, follow Elephant on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, follow Elephant Journal. Can someone type the link? We need help. I took 5 years off from Twitter because I got really just sick and tired of it. Twitter.com/Elephant Journal, @Elephant Journal. Please help us do that. Hey, Christy. Got to get Christy on Elephant. Stop writing on Medium. Medium is fine, but Medium is big tech owned. If we've learned anything from Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, WhatsApp, all owned by the same guy, not Twitter, but the other three. Big tech has enough power. Support independent media. We pay top writers every single week, $40 a month. We want to do more, and the way we can do more is if more people write on Elephant. We are here to create independent, mindful community. Who thinks independent, mindful community is something the world needs more of? And by independent, I mean not owned by the man, not, our primary allegiance isn't to quarterly profits. I've been doing this for 18 years. I can't do this without you. This is meant for all of you. I don't even really promote my own writing on Elephant. Please. Nothing's wrong with Medium. This isn't about East Coast, West Coast, but Medium is owned by big tech. To me, that's what's wrong with Medium. Other than that, I think it's fabulous. And writing on Medium, I got no issue with that. You know what I have more of an issue with is writing on Instagram. How many people write every single day on Instagram or every other day or once a week, but you haven't written on Elephant once? A lot of you, probably 400 of you. And this isn't meant to be guilt trip. This is meant to be an empowering offering, Young Turks, I don't know. I feel like they're incredibly partisan. I think they do some good stuff, but I also think most of their platforms are YouTube and all, Google, blah, blah, blah. Twitter is big tech owned again. ElephantJournal.com/post. Twitter did some good stuff yesterday, and I posted about that, but it's 4 years too late. Elephant, on the other hand, posted about gay rights, gay marriage, on the cover of our print magazine back in 2008 or something, when it wasn't legal, 2007. And a prominent gay blog at the time said we were the first sort of mainstream magazine to cover that on their cover. And when we went to distribute it in Whole Foods, they said, we can't do this. We did it anyway, even though it was bad for business and we didn't have money in the tank. We will be on top of these issues. Elephant, by the way, is not perfect. There will be articles that piss you off. There are articles that make you want to unfollow Elephant. That's community. Who here wants to belong to a community that fucks up every single day? Excuse my French. I do. The alternative is to want to belong to a cult that's sort of perfect. Anyone want to belong to a cult? Who wants to belong to a community, right? With the word community. Communities are messy. Democracy is messy. So stop writing on Facebook. Stop writing on Instagram. Stop writing on Medium. Stop writing on whatever. Or keep doing all that. The more you express yourself, the better. But start first using independent, mindful community. And if you all do that, we'll be able to pay 40 people a week. If you all do that, we'll be able to put in messaging on Elephant. Who wants to have messaging? Like, you guys could all message one another on Elephant, meaning you wouldn't have to use Facebook. You wouldn't have to use Instagram or Twitter. You could have messaging. That's something we want to do this year. We can only do it if we have the budget for it. We can only have the budget for it if y'all write and share and, you know, a couple of your friends subscribe. And subscriptions are what, $3 a month. And as Kate knows and other people know who are here, Jan, we pay, everything we make, we pay to our staff. That's my priority. We don't have any hidden money in any hole in the backyard of our big mansion. All right, back to some questions. We only have 10 minutes. But I do think, you know, I want to say, like, independent media and mindful community can be the solution for a lot of this world's problems. Close your eyes if you feel like it. Think, other than Elephant, what is a huge, independent, mindful community that's online that the whole world can be active in? It's independent. It's not publicly traded on the stock market. It's not owned by a bunch of rich, fat white men. No disrespect to rich, fat white men. But the world has enough of that. Please write about menopause. You have your title right there. Bloody excellent. All right, questions. How can we tell the difference between our learned voices, family, society, etc., and our inside universal voice? Knowing. That is basic goodness, Caitlin. I love that question. That is our basic goodness. And in Zen they say, you know, what is it called? The face you were born with, or something like that. Our original mind, our basic heart. That is something we still have, and we can reconnect with through meditation, through Maitri. Caitlin, I love that question. Nothing's wrong with everything we've learned. We learned a lot of good stuff, but we also learned a lot of not good stuff. That's why we think eating flesh is cool and yummy. That's why we think racism is cool. That's why we think sexism is cool. We learned all these things. There's a lot of great quotes about how a lot of growing up is about unlearning what we've learned. So I love your question, Caitlin. How can we keep love and peace in our hearts in the face of so much anger and hatred and division in the world today? Salima, I love that question. We have to keep love and peace in our hearts in the face of anger and hatred and division. That's how we defeat it. As Abraham Lincoln said, I defeat my enemy when I make him my friend. Something like that. Let me read you a quote. Salima, this one's for you. Everyone listening, you might we're at 10:48, you might be getting sick of me. Let's listen to this because it isn't me. If we want there to be peace in the world, do we all want there to be peace in the world? If we want there to be peace in the world, then we have to take responsibility when our own hearts and minds harden and close. We have to be brave enough to soften what is rigid, to find the soft spot and stay with it. We have to have that kind of courage and take that kind of responsibility. That's true spiritual warriorship. That's the true practice of peace. Pema Chodron. My girlfriend just read that entire book. She did readings every Thursday night. In Spanish and English, by the way. I just put the quote above. Confronted with anger, hatred, and division, the correct response is love and peace in our hearts. And let me ask Michelle and other people here, is love and peace wimpy? Or is love and peace active? Is love and peace fierce? Is love and peace powerful? Is love and peace the full thing of the full manifestation of love and peace is the most powerful thing in the world. Aggression comes out of cowardice. Aggression comes out of frustration. Aggression comes out of not knowing what else to do. Aggression comes out of wanting to belong. But we can create belonging in a more meaningful way. Yeah, if you DM me, any of you guys on Twitter at Elephant Journal, I'll follow you. Please like our tweets. Please share them. Please help us get back going again. But we're not here to recruit for our social media. We're here to say we can go for the rest of our lives confused, doing our best, having good times, having bad times. Or we can take this month, this New Year's resolution, and make an anti-New Year's resolution. A New Year's resolution is typically about wanting to be better, wanting to be thinner, wanting to be stronger, wanting to be more good looking, wanting to be more loved. Whatever it is, it's about improving. An anti-New Year's resolution is about fully resigning ourselves to making friends with ourselves, to giving up on wanting to be something else, and finally, at the age of whatever you are, making friends with yourself. Does that sound like something worthwhile for you? Whether you do it with Elephant this month or you do it with yourself. Finally now, the first day, the first month of the rest of your life, let's do the work. Actually do the practice, like that question. Actually make a commitment to making friends with ourselves. We won't ever be perfect friends with ourselves, just like your best friendships, you sometimes have conflict, but that actually can be part of it, right? I know it's cool to say I'm allergic to social media, but this is social media. Social media is just connecting. There are problems with social media. That is why Elephant is trying to become social media, because we can do it mindfully, not do it about profits, not try to goad people on to extreme views and conflict, but we can do it based on wanting to create a more kind and enlightened society. Amy, please join us. I'm going to be straight up here, people. Please join us for the Maitri quote-unquote boot camp, because we're going to do it. It's the best thing I ever got to do in my life. Not the Maitri boot camp, Maitri. So if you do it elsewhere, great. But do it. Stop going on with your life without just coming back to square one and fully doing it. There's a wonderful quote I was reading this morning about Maitri, which is, it's really not about us, right? It's not self-care. It is self-care, but it's not just self-care. It's turning the flower outward. It's the most powerful activism that we can do. People like Stacey Abrams, Barack Obama, whomever, they have the ability to create peace and love, which, as we just talked about, is a powerful thing, an active thing, despite all of the hatred and the confusion and the neurosis in this world. You know how much hatred, neurosis, and confusion Barack Obama, Michelle Obama had to put up with? We're all afraid of the dark side. We're all afraid of our own dark side. If we're not afraid of our own dark side, then there's nothing else in the whole world to be afraid of. Exactly. Kathy, I'm sitting in divine rage right now. I'm in the questions and answers. Please upvote the ones. We'll do the last couple. Please upvote the ones you want discussed. I'm sitting in divine rage right now. Beneath that rage is deep sadness. I think that says it all. Beneath aggression is something quieter. And I think that's what I felt all week, this kind of sadness, heartbreak, depression. How can we reestablish an open heart is already there. It's more like how can we reconnect with that open heart? And yeah, the concrete suggestion is what the Buddha taught. And we don't need to become Buddhists again. Who cares? No one's recruiting here. There's no roles. We're not trying to add your name to some list. How do we get past the deep fear? That is Maitri. It's not a word, it's a practice. And we're doing that practice this month. That's a good quote for us, Molly. It's not a word, it's a practice. It's good to talk about things and have a view and have a little bit of philosophy. But at some point, you got to let go of all that. It's just prejudgment. It's preconception. It's just talk. The second we give voice to something, it's no longer fully true. We actually have to do it. We can say it. We can say the right thing. What do conservatives, and I'm not trying to insult all conservatives, but what do conservatives say after a school shooting? 3 words. What do they say after a school shooting? Please stick around for 4 more minutes. Anyone? Thoughts and prayers. It's easy to say the right words. It's easy to say the right words. Anyone know the story of Naropa? He said all the right words. He was a wise Buddhist teacher. He was a knowledgeable Buddhist teacher. Then he was challenged by a kind of witch, kind of feminist. He was challenged by this powerful, crazy, scary old lady who was a manifestation of Dharma, of truth, of teachings. And she said, tell me everything you know about Dharma. And he told her some stuff, and she was happy, and she danced around. Anyone know this story? Are we listening? Let's come together. 3 last minutes. Naropa was the most knowledgeable teacher in the Buddhist University in Rwanda, which was like the Harvard or Yale of its time, or Oxford. And then she said, what do you understand about all those words that you know? And he said some stuff because he wanted to make her happy. She was so happy with the first response. Does everyone get this story so far? We might have missed part of it. Naropa, wisest professor, most knowledgeable professor, in an old kind of witch hag. She's described as a hag. Powerful manifestation of a woman, a powerful woman. And she said, tell me what you know about Buddhism. And he said, this is what I know about Buddhism. She was like, wow, that's so amazing. She danced. She was like 85. Then she said, tell me what you understand about Buddhism. And he said some stuff. And she flew into a rage and started attacking him. And this is a story, but the point of that story is thoughts and prayers. We can all say the right thing, but to embody it, philosophy isn't enough. To embody it, we have to practice it. To practice it, we have to decide to practice it. So I thought, coming out of our mission at Elephant, that we would start January, not with a New Year's resolution. Oh, I want to be a little bit more fit, which can be great. It's good to take care of yourself. But instead, may our aspiration be to finally, and for the first time, fully make friends with ourselves, the parts of ourselves we like, that we tend to be arrogant about and exploit, the parts of ourselves that we dislike that we tend to have shame about and hide and have guilt about. That's Maitri, and we're going to do it for 21 days, and I hope you'll join us. Whether you do or not, I thank you very much for coming, for showing up, for all of us. You guys showing up for me and for one another and for yourself. Thank you to all 520 of you, and we've had another 10,000 or whatever on Facebook. Please click that green button and join me. In the last 30 seconds, let's all take a bow. And if you are going to join, please say, "Hi, I'm joining." Say, "I'm joining, join, and bow." Let's take a great posture, and I'll see you on Twitter. If you're going to join, say, "I'm joining." And if you're bowing out, take a great posture. Wangle your shoulders around your neck. Find your breath. And with respect, friendliness, and a powerful joy, grounded in your basic nature, let's give it away. Thank you so much. What a way to spend Saturday, an hour of Saturday. Click the green button, and you can always email with any further questions. Thank you so much. I'll stick around for a minute just to read your comments. All right, Cindy is joining. Susan is joining. Aaron is joining. Debbie is joining. Jan has already joined. Lori and Christy. Christy's coming back. Tess. Salima, encouraging Asia to write. Michelle, thank you. Jennifer joined already. Tess has joined already. Luann has joined. Wangle. Linda. Troy, if you're still here, I hope you joined. Luann. All right, folks. Thank you. Redford flipped around. That's our big update of the hour. Luann. I'll see you there. Just reading all the questions I wasn't able to get to. The boot camp is has a live thing. So if you're already doing the course, Asia, email academy@elephantjournal.com and they can tell you which one you're in. There's the not live Maitri, which has been available for a while, and now we're doing a live version, which includes the curriculum of the not live version. So if you are already signed up for the not live version, you can at a big discount just add on the live. Thank you, Asia. Carrie, if you do want to join, you can't financially join. We do have scholarships. Sometimes scholarships are made possible by alumni, graduates. So if you're actually interested, email academy@elephantjournal.com. Kate and others who have friends who believe in QAnon and all that stuff, I'm happy to talk about that. But there's some good resources on New York Times about how to talk to family members or loved ones about QAnon and things like that. All right. Troy, I'm not sure. It's probably an hour. Yeah. And if you miss it, it's always recorded. But it's not an hour of talking like this. It's an hour of doing. We're going to practice together. It'll be obviously some talking questions, but it'll be the actual practice. We're actually going to do it.